everybody. Welcome in. It is so good to see everybody. I hope you guys are having a great day so far. Thank you for joining me for today's class. So for those of you who don't know me or haven't taken a class with me before, my name is Sarah Lovecraft. I am a designer for Beadalon. And my love language is wire, and we are speaking that today. I'm going to show you guys a really cool earrings project that has a spiral cone in it that you can use for a lot of other things other than just earrings. This is a really cool and easy to do project that I think is going to really inspire you to use these cones in a lot of different ways in your own jewelry making. So I'm going to get right down to it. This is going to be kind of a quick project, but again, I think you'll really enjoy it. So let's get started. I'm going to turn you guys around and let's talk about materials for today's class. So you're going to need just the basic tools. I always have 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, round nose pliers. I've got my cutter tool, and then the addition of the nylon jaw pliers. These come in handy for creating the spirals. You don't have to use these. If you don't have them, don't feel like you can't do this project, but I do like them because when you're creating the spiral, these help to keep you from making scuff marks on the wire with your pliers. So these are handy to have. As far as the wire is concerned, we're going to be using about 6 inches of 18 gauge wire. And of course, you need to double everything because we're just making 1 earring. But to make the set, obviously, you're going to need 2 of these. So about 6 inches of 18 gauge wire. I'm using German style wire for this. And then you're going to need about 4 inches, 4.5 inches, something like that, of 22 gauge wire. And again, I'm using the German style wire for this as well. You're going to need some head pins. You can grab any of your favorite head pins. I always use the Beadalon head pins because I really, really like that they are not crazy stiff. They bend really well. We're going to be doing some simple loops, so have these on hand. And then as far as findings for jump rings, I'm going to be using like 4mm or 5mm jump rings. I grabbed mine out of my findings variety pack. I just find that the little findings variety packs have everything that I need, and you're only going to need about 4 of these little jump rings. You'll have plenty of leftovers to throw in your bag or just to sit to the side of your desk. These are really, really handy to have. You're going to need some ear wires. I have chosen these, but you can choose whichever ones are your favorite. And then last but not least, we're going to use some beads. Now, if you've taken classes with me before, I always speak very, very highly of the cards, the little bead landing cards that have more than 1 size bead on them, whether they are the faceted Rondelles or whether they are just round beads or whatever the case may be. I feel like these are a wonderful, cost-effective way to buy beads, and I love that Michaels has these. I'm using the ones that are kind of rainbow metallic, but you can buy these in any color. There is a huge selection of these to make these earrings in, you know, whatever color you want to. That being said, if silver wire is not your go-to choice, you can do this with gold as well. The gold looks really cool with this kind of rainbowy metallic ones or beads. So up to you, up to you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a spiral. And we're actually going to start this with our chain nose pliers. I feel like a lot of people get confused by that. They don't really understand why it is that I use chain nose pliers to get started instead of round nose pliers, but that makes the perfect little hook. I find that I can get a more precise hook with a chain nose than I can with the round nose pliers. So you'll just have to trust me on this one. But with your 6-inch piece of your 18 gauge wire, you're going to take the very tip of your chain nose pliers and you want to grab the very tip of the wire. And you want to create just a tiny little hook in the wire just by bending it around just like so. Okay. And if you find that you started your hook, let me get a scrap piece of wire just to kind of give you an example here. If you find that you started your hook and it's too deep of a hook, let's just make one for instance, because I feel like a lot of people will do this the first time, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So let's just say that we make our first little hook, but our hook is too deep, right? And what I mean by that is there's too much wire in the short section, just come in with your cutter tool. Don't scrap the whole piece of wire. Just come in with your cutter tool and just barely trim off to get your hook as short as you want it. You want it to just be a tiny little baby hook. And I just can't get it as precise with the round nose pliers as I can with the chain nose pliers. So that's definitely why. So again, if you feel like your hook is a little too deep, and you'll know what I mean when you start the spiral, you'll see that the center of your spiral, because we're going to start here and build outwards, is not going to be quite as small and tight as you want it to be. So you're going to want to start with a very, very short little hook. Okay. All right. So we're going to take our wire and we're going to take our chain nose pliers. And I always start out with the chain nose pliers and then switch to the nylon jaw pliers for this, just because the first couple of turns are kind of tricky. So what you want to do is you just want to lay that hook into the jaw of your pliers and very gently close the pliers over the hook. And while you are holding that closed, you want to start to turn the wire. Notice how the wire was coming towards me, and now I've bent the wire kind of running parallel with the pliers. I'm going to open the pliers up, and you can see how we've kind of started to curve the wire around. I'm going to replace that hook into the jaw of the pliers again, now with the wire again facing me, and then you're going to guide the wire. All right, so we're very slowly, with very intentional movements, opening and closing the jaws of the pliers and turning the wire. That's going to start building out the spiral. Now, this is where you may want to switch over to those nylon jaw pliers, because as you're opening and closing over your wire, you may scuff the wire up with your chain nose pliers. If not, that's fine. You can be really gentle. I just tend to be less gentle. So I feel like the nylon jaw pliers are very, very helpful. So once you got it started, switch over to the nylon, okay? And you're just going to go slow and start building that spiral from the center out by opening and closing and repositioning the wire into the jaws of the pliers. So just go slow to try to get it as round as you can get it. That's the goal, is to try to make it as round as possible. And believe it or not, it all starts with that little hook in the very, very beginning. If that hook is off by just a little bit, it can turn your round spiral into more of a oval instead of a nice round shape. So just going slow and building outwards, and we're going to use up the majority of this piece of 6 inches of wire. Now you may find that the wider your spiral becomes, it already wants to kind of become 3-dimensional. Can you see how it's kind of sinking down in the middle? That's going to help us create that cone. So don't worry if it's not staying perfectly flat, because we're gonna open it up and create a cone with it. So it's already kind of helping us with that. All right, so we're going to get up to the end of the wire here. And I'm giving myself just a little bit left over. Okay, just a little tiny bit left. You can trim this off if you want to. You can leave it and hold on to it to use it to help you manipulate this into the cone shape that you want. Or you can turn a little loop at the end. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. For now, I'm going to leave mine on here and then take care of it in a minute. But now it's time to bring in our chain nose pliers again. And again, you can see how it's starting to really kind of sink down in the center. We're going to use that to our advantage by flipping it over. So now that it's kind of going outwards, and we're going to take the very tip of our chain nose pliers, and we're going to hold those chain nose pliers closed, and we're going to place the tip of those pliers just right in the center of our spiral. Okay. And I'm holding the spiral on either side with my fingers, my non-dominant hand. And then with my dominant hand, I'm just going to start to push very slowly that center with my pliers. Okay. And you really just want to kind of get it started. Okay. Then you can come in with your fingers and you can pull it apart to manipulate the rest of it into the shape that you want. So kind of pull it apart like a slinky, but go slow, gradual, slow little movements. Don't make big, quick movements. You want to do small movements so that you can correct it if you move it into a shape that you don't want. It's better to make those little small corrections than to try to readjust the entire thing. So I'm just very slowly kind of pulling this spiral open to create a little cone. Now you can see the top of mine's a little flat. I'm going to bring the pliers back in just to push that center out just a little bit more. You can even use your pliers on the outside as well. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is that every one of the cones that you make, they're all going to be different. No two cones are going to be exactly the same, right? They're all going to be a little bit different. And sometimes that drives people crazy when you're making earrings because you want them to be twins. They're not going to be twins. These are very kind of organic wire cones. They are, they're going to be like cousins, maybe sisters, but they're not going to be twins. All of the cones are going to look different. But once you get the beads involved, it really doesn't, you really don't even notice that there are any differences in them at all. Okay. All right. So now, if you've already made the first one, you do kind of want to bring them together. And like I said, they're not going to be twins, but you do want them to be the same height if possible, right? If you're just making the first one, that one's going to be the one that you're going to base the second one off of, obviously. But if you're making the second one, definitely want to just double check with the first one that you made to make sure that they're pretty close in height. You don't want one to be super tall and the other one to be really, really short. Okay. All right. So for our sample, let's take a look here because this is where we're going with this, right? We're going to fill this cone up with some of those beautiful beads, and we're going to create a beaded cluster to hang out of the bottom of this. And on the sample, you can see I have left the end of my wire bare. I just trimmed it off and left it just like it was, making sure that I kind of tuck it to the inside a little bit. It's definitely not just like hanging out on the edge because I don't want it to get caught in clothing or in anybody's hair. Now, the alternative to this would be if you still don't like just that raw edge there, to come in and trim off, leaving yourself just a little bit further out than the base of the cone. Trim off, and then you can come in with your round nose pliers and take that wire and turn just the tiniest little loop on the end. And you can come in with your chain nose pliers too to get a little bit more precise. That's just going to kind of make that end feel more finished. You're not going to see it once you have the beads in there. You'll never see that, but it keeps that end from being exposed, I guess. It just kind of finishes that off and makes it less likely to grab onto hair or clothing or anything like that. But it's up to you. I find that once I have the beads involved, I don't really have any problems with it. But just for extra insurance, you can do that little loop in there. Okay. And then, of course, you do want to be sure that you kind of tuck it to the inside just slightly. Right? You can see how that's kind of tucked to the inside, whether or not you make a loop right there or not. Okay. All right. So here's our cone. Now, why do we want to make a cone? Well, first of all, they're super cute, right? If you were doing this around the holidays, they make really cool little Christmas trees. If not, a cone is a very, very versatile thing to have in your jewelry designs because number one, you can fill them up with beads. They add dimension and texture to all of your designs, but they can also be used as a cap for all kinds of things. You can use these as a cap for a tassel. You can use these as a cap for a multi-strand design. You can use these as necklace ends. You can use them just as accents in pieces. You can take your little cones like with our earring and do several of these in the front of a necklace design. And they're just really fun and cool. But I feel like a lot of people like to use them as tassel toppers or, just to finish the ends of a bracelet or a necklace, something like that. So it's just a cool trick to have around. It's pretty easy to do. Just one of those things where if you get bored create a spiral and see what happens next, right? It might just inspire your next design. All right, so let's finish putting our earring together. Okay, so we're going to use a 22 gauge piece of wire, and we're going to create a wrapped loop on one end. So I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I'm going to come down on that wire about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay, I'm going to bend the wire over the top of the pliers. That's going to give it a nice sharp bend. Then I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. I'm going to grab the wire and I'm going to take that short piece and I'm going to go up and over the top barrel of the pliers. And that's just going to give us this really weird kind of hook shape. We need to create a full loop here, but I can't do that with this bottom barrel of the pliers in the way. So in order to take this wire all the way over to the other side, we've got to move that. So I'm going to take this bottom barrel and just by rotating the tool, rotating the tool in my hands, I can take that bottom barrel, make it the top barrel, and then just go ahead and take that wire over to the other side. So you don't have to take it off of the tool to readjust. Okay, so switching hands, I'm going to do about 3 wraps underneath the loop that we just created. So basically we're creating an eye pin with a wrapped loop. Then you want to come in with your cutter tool and trim off any of the excess wire. Okay. All right. Now we're going to use this wire to fill up our cone with our beads. So our beads, of course, come in a variety of sizes. On this card, we're going to be using not the largest. We're going to skip over the largest size, but we're going to be using the second to largest and then the 2 smaller for our project. So we're going to take our wire and we're going to thread on one of the largest, not the biggest, the next size down. Okay. And then we're going to thread on the next size down from that. And now we're going to thread our cone. We're going to take the wire and we want to be sure that we take our wire through the center of that little hook that we started with. And we're just going to drop that down so it sits right over the top of our wire. Yes, there is exposed wire in here. If you wanted to fill all that up, you could take another one of these little tiny beads, right? One of the smallest ones, and then put your cone over that, and that's going to fill up the entire cone. It's really just kind of up to you. I'm going to leave mine just like it is with just the 2 beads on the inside. I'm going to drop that down and I'm going to take the smallest bead and I'm going to put that right over the top. Okay, now I'm going to create another wrapped loop just to secure all of this together. So I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I'm grabbing the wire right where it is coming out of the bead and I'm going to bend the wire over the top of the pliers so that when I take the pliers away, I have the perfect amount of space here for my wraps. Come in with my round nose pliers. And again, following the same steps, we're going up and over, rotating the pliers and then taking the wire to the other side. And we're going to wire wrap in the space between the loop and the top of the bead. And that's securing everything all together. We're going to come in with our cutter tool and trim off. All right, now we're going to set this to the side for a little bit. We're going to work on our beads that we're going to create our cluster with. And we're going to attach all of that to the bottom loop on our little cone right here. So we're going to set all of this to the side and you're going to need 9 of the second to smallest of all of these little rondelles, the 4x5 millimeters. Okay, I've already done 4 of them. We've got 5 more to go. So we're going to practice our simple loops with these. So I'm just going to take each one and I'm going to thread it onto a head pin. You can make your own head pins if you want to. I've shown in several classes how to do a knotted head pin. You can do that if you want. In place of these simple loops, you can do wrapped loops if you want to. But I thought this was a good opportunity to practice not only our wrapped loops in the cone part, but our simple loops here. So each bead is going to go onto a head pin. Okay, then we're going to take our chain nose pliers, and instead of bending the wire over the top of our chain nose pliers, we're going to use our chain nose pliers to help us bend the wire right where it is exiting the bead. And I like to do that with like little bites with my pliers. So I hold onto the bead and then I open it and close the wire just by kind of chomping down on it with the jaws of the pliers to help bend that wire right over the top of the bead. And I get as deep of a bend as I possibly can. Okay, now I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and I'm going to trim off the excess wire here. All I need to make a simple loop is going to be about 1/4 of an inch of wire, maybe just a tiny bit over 1/4 of an inch. And I like to use my finger as a measurement, but I know that that doesn't work for everybody because everybody's fingers are shaped differently. But if I put my index finger between the bead and the blade of the cutter tool, that usually gives me about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to trim off the wire, and then I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, and we're going to create our loop. We're going to grab the wire at the tip, and we're going to just take our pliers and roll backwards or back towards our body and towards our bead to close up our loop. And again, I do that sort of the same way that we bend the wire with our chain nose pliers with the little chomping motion. The simple loop I do in like little turns, right? It's just kind of these little rolls back. I've never been able to do it in just one smooth movement. If you can, that's awesome. I'm totally envious of you, but I cannot do it that way. I have to do really small little movements. All right, so we're going to do that again, holding on to the bead and using our pliers to help kind of bend that wire. Okay, and we're going to come in again with our cutter tool. Leave yourself about 1/4 of an inch of wire, trimming off, and then coming in with the round nose pliers. And we're going to roll the wire back towards our body, towards the bead to close up that loop. Now listen, I'll be the first to admit that my simple loops, they're always different. One of them is a little, you can see the first one I did was really small where I overcut the wire. This one's a little bit bigger, but they all turn out differently. Some of them look more like a little egg. Some of them are more like an oval or a teardrop. They're not all perfect. And I don't sweat those little things. So for those of you out there who are really, really hard on yourself when it comes to these loops, number one, these are a little bit harder, in my opinion, to achieve than a wrapped loop. Wrapped loops are easy. These guys, they tend to not be so easy. And if you struggle with these, practice, 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 but then give yourself lots of grace, because once you put the design together, nobody can see those loops. Nobody's paying any attention to what those loops look like, right? Okay, so we've got 3 more to go. I'm going to grab the wire, my pliers, give the wire a bend. Okay, coming in with my cutter tool, trim off, and then coming in with the round nose pliers to roll back. And you just want to be sure that whether it's an egg shape, a teardrop shape, the most important part is that it's a closed loop. You don't want to leave any gaps in there, right? You want to make sure that it's completely closed. All right, 2 more to go, and then we're going to put all of this together. So bending the wire, coming in with the cutter, and then coming in with the round nose. Okay, and we got 1 more to go. Now, I've only done 5 here, but you want to do a total of 9 of these to create a nice full cluster. Okay, so now that we have all of those done, we're ready to put all of this together. We're going to do that with a series of jump rings. I'm using really tiny jump rings here. 4 millimeter will do, 5 millimeter, whichever ones you want to use are fine. I'm going to start out with a single jump ring, and I'm going to open it up between 2 pairs of pliers. Just going to twist, and I'm going to thread on one of the beads that I just put a loop on, and then I'm going to close this jump ring back. Okay, this is our bottom of our cluster. It's just one single bead. I'm going to take another jump ring and open it up, thread that onto the jump ring that we just added, and now I'm going to add a bead to either side. So I'm going to put a bead on this side, and then I grab it with another pair of pliers to put a bead on this side. That makes a difference because if you put both beads on the same side, it's going to make your design lopsided. So make sure that one goes on one side and one goes on the other side. Close your jump ring back. You can see how those are going to hang. Lay that down. We're going to pick up another jump ring, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to add that jump ring to the one we just closed, putting one bead on one side and one bead on the other side. Close that back. You can see we're building a little cluster. Okay, we've got one more jump ring. Open. We're going to attach that to the jump ring that we just added. Put one bead on one side and then one bead on the other side. And before we close that jump ring, we're going to attach that to the loop on the bottom of our earring. Now I know we still have 2 beads left. We're going to attach those 2, but first we want to attach this. So attach to the wrapped loop on the bottom of your cone, close that back. Okay. Now you can leave it like this if you want to, but I kind of like to fill in the space just to make it a little bit fuller in that connection point between the jump ring and the wrapped loop, because I feel like it just looks kind of naked. So I'm going to take each one of these individually, our last 2 beads, and I'm going to open up the simple loop that is on the top. So I'm going to treat it the same way I would a jump ring. I'm just going to twist to open it. Now I want to attach this to that wrapped loop on either side of our jump ring. So one on this side and one on the other side. And again, you want to make sure that they're on one on each side instead of both on the same side so that everything is balanced. And then you're just going to close that back. And we're going to do the same thing with our last bead, making sure to put it on the opposite side. And using your chain nose pliers to close that back. And you can see how it just kind of fills in and makes it a little fuller in that transition instead of it being kind of, I don't know, it just felt kind of naked without that. And that's it. The only thing left to do is to put on the ear wire, and your earring is complete. And of course, you're going to want to make the mate if you want these to be earrings. But of course, if you're going to use this as a pendant, you are ready to go. And instead of putting on an ear wire, you could just put a jump ring on. But there you go. And you can see it doesn't really make much of a difference visually if you've got the loop on the finished end or if you just have the bare end here. It really doesn't make a huge difference in the overall appearance of the design. But there you go. I'm going to turn you guys around. I'm going to put these on so we can see what they look like. Okay. They definitely look different on than they do laying down for sure. So turn you around and let's try these on to see what they look like. Now these can always be adjusted. You can make a larger cone, you can make a smaller cone, you can adjust the bead sizes. These can all be adjusted to your individual needs. These are going to be a little too long for some people, maybe not big enough for other people. They're really a lightweight design, so they're not super heavy. So any adjustments that you make with the rondelle beads in particular, you're not really going to affect the weight of them unless you just go crazy with the with the bottom cluster here. The camera is so silly feel like we're getting further and further down my face here. You can't see the earrings. I'll put the other one on as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this project. I think these are really cute little earrings. It's a fun little design, definitely something a little different. Again, if you're going to do this around the holidays, you're going to have a great design to make little Christmas trees out of. You can do it with artistic wire and green if you wanted to make them a color. But I definitely find that a cone can be worn anytime, particularly if you do it in silver or gold and just put some really cool fancy beads with it, or not fancy beads. It's totally up to you. But again, a versatile thing that you can use as a tassel topper. You can use it as a necklace, cone, or just an accent to any other jewelry designs that you might be putting together. So thank you so much for joining me, you guys. It has been fun as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon with another fun project. Bye, guys. Have a great afternoon.